Welcome to Storytime with Sugar. Today we're reading The Firekeeper's Son. We live in an important village, Songhee's father said. Songhe looked around. A few huts made of wood and mud, a few cows, a few chickens, a few dogs. It did not look like an important village. Our part of Korea is like a dragon with many humps, his father said. The humps are the mountains, the first hump facing the sea, the last hump facing the king's palace. Our mountain is the first hump. Our fire is the first fire. Every evening at sunset, Songhee's father climbed to the top of the mountain carrying a pair of tongs and a little brass pot filled with live coals. Coals to start a fire so big it could be seen from the next mountain, where another firekeeper saw it and lit his fire, a fire big enough to be seen from the next mountain, where a third firekeeper saw it and lit his fire, and on and on. A fire on every hump of the dragon's back, all the way to the last one, the hump that could be seen from the palace walls. When the king saw the fire on the last mountain, he knew that all was well in his land. When trouble comes to our land, it almost always comes from the sea, Songhee's father explained. If ever we see enemy ships, I will not light our fire, and the next firekeeper will not light his fire, and on until the king sees only darkness on the last hump. He will know that trouble has come to our land, and he will send soldiers to fight the enemy. We are fortunate, Songhee's father said. In your time and my time, and your grandfather's time, the fire has always been lit. It is good to live in a time of peace. It is good that soldiers have never come. Soldiers, tall, brave soldiers with shining swords. Songhe wished he could see soldiers just once. Evening. Songhe shooed the chickens into their coop. He glanced up at the mountain looking for the fire. No fire. His father was a little late. Songhe fetched water from the river. He poured the water into the barrel, then glanced up the mountain again. No fire. Songhe looked out at the sea where the setting sun made a path on the water. Could those be ships bobbing on the waves? No, just a flock of seagulls. No enemies, no trouble, but still no fire. Songhe called his mother. He pointed at the mountain. She looked, then turned and stared at the sea. Songhe, you must run and see what has happened, she said. Something is wrong. There is no trouble from the sea, and the fire must be lit. Songhe ran up the mountain path. He knew the path like a friend. But tonight it was not at all friendly. Stones tripped him. Branches reached out to lash at his face. He ran until he could not run any more. A strange noise, a groaning sound, a groan from the bushes by the path. Father! Songhe, I am all right, but I fell and hurt my ankle and I fear it is broken. I cannot walk. You must light the fire. Hurry. Songhe grabbed the brass pot and ran again. The fire, he had to light the fire. His feet pounded out a song on the path. Light the fire, light the fire, light the fire. At last Songhe reached the top of the mountain. There was the brush pile ready to be lit. He knelt, trembling from his run. He picked up one coal with the tongs and dropped it. It broke into 100 red jewels that glowed for a moment, then died. A second coal, gleaming bright as a soldier's sword. If there is no fire, the soldiers will come. They will be angry when they find no enemies here. But maybe not all of them will be angry. Maybe there is a soldier who would be glad for a chance to visit the sea. I could show him the beach, where to catch the best fish, where to find the prettiest shells. After that, he might teach me a little about sword fighting. Songhe wished he could see soldiers just once. I could say I dropped the pot and spilled all the coals, that it was an accident. While Songhe thought, the second coal burned out. He looked into the brass pot. Only one coal left. One coal glowing fiercely, almost as if it were talking, as if it were saying, light the fire, and a time of peace in his father's voice. Songhe carefully picked up the last coal and put it on the tinder at the bottom of the brush pile. It smoked and smoldered, and for a moment it looked as if it would go out. Then a tongue of flame licked the tinder. It ate all the tinder and reached greedily for the brush. Soon the whole pile was aflame. Songhe watched the flames. He saw a great battle, soldiers, their shining swords clashing. After the fire died out, Songhe waited until the ashes cooled, then swept them aside. He built a new pile of brush for the next night. as his father had always done, and his grandfather before him. Then Sankey walked back down the path. His father was waiting. "Did it burn well, my son?" "Yes, father." He put an arm around his father's waist. His father hobbled as they walked and leaned on Sankey's shoulder. "When I was a boy, I too wished the soldiers would come." Sankey drew in a quick breath. How did his father know? "Do not forget, my son, that we are part of the king's guard, just as the soldiers are. We are the very first part." Sankey's father smiled. "The village will be pleased to hear that another trustworthy firekeeper has been born to our family." Suddenly, Sankey was glad he had lit the fire. The gladness felt as warm as a glowing coal. And until his father's ankle healed, it was Sankey who climbed the mountain every evening at sunset carrying the brass pot filled with live coals. Coals to start a fire that could be seen from the next mountain, to tell another firekeeper to light his fire, and on until the king himself knew that all was well in the land.